I love it because we can have this meeting. So I want to welcome Rachel, who's been a member of the league since 2008, I believe. And she has been working with the Voter Service Committee and is the chair of the Voter Service group that arranges all of our candidates forums. So she has been involved with League for all that time, but she does have other interests, and she will talk about her other interests tonight. So Rachel, I am so pleased that you can give us some time.
Thank you. Shall I start?
Yes.
Okay. I've tried to make this, I'm such a wonk that I went back and really reviewed the whole history. So I have tons of facts that probably no one's that interested in, but I also try to make it a bit of a narrative because I think it's interesting to look at the history in that it's been really, there have been aspects of it that have been like beating your head against the wall, but through time, things have actually gotten much easier and more satisfying. So I'm kind of telling a story of that, which I think anytime anybody tries to do something that's controversial to some people, it's going to be like that. So anyway, I try to frame it in that way. In 2008, upon seeing the League of Women Voters Edwardsville area screening of An Inconvenient Truth, I don't know if you all remember when we screened that, I made my mind up to try to influence as much as possible any government entity that I could to move toward environmentally sustainable practices. A group of 4 of us citizens, Dave Gokin, a Sierra Club member, Phil Hudson, who was formerly an EPA employee in the Pollution Prevention Division, Chris Crusa, who was on this meeting, who was then new to this area, and yours truly met regularly for a period of time in the public library throwing around ideas. I really could not remember how I met them and how we formed our group. So I put out feelers, and it appears that Dave Gokin had the Sierra Club had actually asked him to take over this Cool Cities, trying to organize Cool Cities. And no one can remember how I got involved. I just kind of remember going to meet some strangers in the library to discuss this kind of thing. And that was the beginning of a very good experience. That part was wonderful. We met throwing around ideas, and we decided to try to influence local municipalities to join the Cool Cities organization. Cool Cities is an initiative that was organized at the 73rd Annual Conference of Mayors in Chicago in June of 2005. Because of a lack of federal level activity, mayors decided to take action at a local level toward the goal of reducing global warming pollution to 7% below the 1990 level by 2012, or in other words, to meet or exceed the Kyoto Protocol standards. As of 12/10/2008, this mayor's agreement had been signed by 910 US mayors, including 37 Illinois mayors, which were all from the Chicago area, except the mayor of Carbondale and of Alton. The mayor of Alton had signed the previous year. So it was kind of new for this region, but it was definitely a grassroots effort born really out of frustration with the lack of federal leadership on the issue of climate change. The 4 of us went our separate ways at this point, in that Chris went on to start the Glen Carbon Cool Cities meeting, and Dave and I met with the mayor of Edwardsville and city employees and presented petitions that we had distributed. And many of you listening today probably signed this petition. The Cool Cities program was then under the umbrella of the Sierra Club, who gave us assistance and probably got us together in the first place. I just didn't remember that part. That's probably certainly how it happened, because I was also a Sierra Club member. Edwardsville Mayor Gary Niebuhr signed the U.S. Mayor's Climate Protection Agreement on January 22nd, 2009. He didn't want us to really give him the petitions because he didn't want to sort of feel like, and he didn't want to make much of that. He made the decision himself to sign that agreement. At that time, the city council had already approved one hybrid vehicle in its fleet. Although I remember being told that police vehicles couldn't be hybrid because of the need for quick pickup in a police vehicle. So now, though, we have 7 police vehicles and with a planned purchase of 3 more this year. The city at that time had curbside recycling already on a weekly basis and had already enacted a leaf burning ban. There was a recycle bin next to copy machines, I'm told, in city offices, and recycled rubber was used in playgrounds. There was a tree branch chipper for solid waste recycling, and there had been a comprehensive land use policy written by city planner Scott Hansen and a group of citizens, and it was a very progressive document. I think it's still in effect. I think it's going to be updated soon. I may be mistaken about that. It's actually a very progressive document about trying to infill to preserve, with development infilling the city and having mixed use areas to be similar to neighborhoods to try to avoid sprawl. The Public Works Department at that time had already obtained an $80,000 grant from DCEO and distributed energy efficiency kits to residents, tuned furnaces for low-income residents, which they still do, and had replaced some of the traffic lights to LED and upgraded the HVAC in City Hall and the new Public Works building. And I found this little factoid in 2009, 71 mercury vapor lights were replaced by sodium vapor lights because although Public Works and Alderman Stamer both knew that LEDs were better, they were regarded as too costly since they required a replacement of the entire fixture. So it was a little challenging for us from the beginning. From the beginning for our committee, it was slow going and kind of frustrating. Being told, for example, well, we can't have hybrid police cars, which it turns out we can, but now everyone recognizes that, and then no one did. The city, just like the general culture at the time, I don't really fault the city particularly. I think it's a reflection of just the way everyone, the general zeitgeist, you might say, was slow to respond to our message. For an example, the mayor's climate protection agreement was signed by Mayor Niebuhr on January 22nd, 2009, and the committee members were appointed to the committee on August 21st, 2009, 8 months later. We just waited 8 months. These original committee members were Dave Gokin, who's the chair, Barb Anderson, who's the architect who designed the environmentally forward-looking building on the Bohm Highway to Alton that has a green roof and is constructed of fieldstone. I think anyone who's driven by it notices it. It's really a remarkable building. Bob Pfeiffer, who's the Parks and Rec director, Alderman Barb Stamer was on the committee then, and city planner Scott Hansen, as well as me. We were appointed, but there was an unexplained 8-month hesitation. We began by initiating a greenhouse gas inventory, which is the first step for for cool cities. You're supposed to have a greenhouse gas inventory, assessing where your problem areas are, and then write a climate action plan and then put it into effect. We began immediately with the greenhouse gas inventory. Prior to the first meeting that I was arranging of an SIUE student, Adam Russell, who was willing to conduct this as his master's thesis for a degree at SIU under the supervision of Dr. Susan Morgan of the Civil and Environmental Engineering program. As I was setting up the meeting, I was told no by a city employee. So I remember just really fuming. And then I decided just to set up the meeting. And then the employee who told me no, who I believe had been told to tell me no, joined the meeting. We moved forward and the greenhouse gas inventory was made. So I feel like that's an important lesson. So when you're doing something like this, just don't be easily discouraged. I found that people really like to discourage things that are unusual or to them seem, I don't know, dangerous. And people will tell you no. And if you take the first no as a no, that's as far as you get. And if you just go, okay, well, what happens if I go ahead? I mean, what exactly is anyone going to do to me? Then I don't know. It's just the way it worked, and it did work. The greenhouse gas inventory included a lot of estimating using parameters and formulas that are made available for this purpose. And of the community submissions, 36.48 were estimated to come from the transportation sector, 36.88 from the commercial sector, and 25.67% from residential sources. So our early initiatives, the early initiatives that we undertook were met with clear resistance to our inclusion in decision-making. When Chairman Gokin attempted to contact the city when energy aggregation was adopted to advocate for 100% renewable sources, his phone calls weren't returned. Really, Dave plowed on for a period of time and then just had to leave out of sheer frustration. Barb Anderson also left out of sheer frustration. The committee has changed personnel. I'm the only person who remains from the inception. Years later, actually quite a bit when I was already the chair myself, our meeting room was just no longer, we were just told was no longer available, so that we had to adjust our meeting time, which meant I lost an hour of work just to stay housed in City Hall, because we realized, okay, well, we don't want to not be in City Hall because we're a city committee. And so we adjusted and stayed, and now we're quite accepted. Some of our early success appeared indirectly. In 2010, we were attempting to influence local adoption of the 2009 Energy Efficiency Building Code, the International Energy Conservation Code. That was a code adopted by Illinois, and I believe it had just been updated to 2009, which it is updated every 3 years, and it becomes more and more stringent in Illinois, requiring building to have a lot of energy efficiency attributes. It was not being enforced and adopted locally. So we arranged for a speaker from the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity in Springfield to come and give a presentation in the county council chambers, to which we invited all the local municipalities. There were many representatives of townships in the region learning how to put this new building code into effect. And by the time the presentation took place, Edwardsville was listed as the municipality which had already adopted the code. So it kind of just happened indirectly by our becoming a center of education about the code. It just became adopted. It seemed like indirect means worked better than direct means at that time. In 2011, we were approached by Republic Services to ask the city to let recycling containers be an exception to the enclosure laws, as local businesses were complaining there wasn't room in their enclosures for recycling. So we presented to the ACS committee on 10/29/11, And as of the next February, we had received no really official response. But we later learned that it was considered a compromise that recycling containers less than 2 cubic yards were not required to be enclosed. So we were told, no, actually, although that is the compromise, and still businesses can have that size container. There is no city recycling for businesses or for apartment complexes. So in 2012, I began an effort to interview businesses up and down Main Street, most of which did not recycle, to see what would help, such as receptacle sharing agreements between businesses. Edwardsville high school students picked this up a little later and interviewed business owners. And some businesses set great examples. For example, Stagger Inn at Sacred Grounds. Sacred Grounds was having their compost picked up. And on 3/6/2014, I never was quite satisfied with our resolution, but we did send letters to all the businesses on Main Street explaining what is recyclable, offering the name and contact information of all the businesses in the region that offered this service locally. I called to make sure, and as well as the number to call with problems. And that was my number. Never had a call. In 2012, we had a great success. The City Council, at our urging, passed a green building resolution, determining that future buildings would be at a level of sustainability called LEEDs eligible in the language of the resolution. LEEDs is a program that certifies green building accomplishments, but it costs money to apply for LEEDs accreditation. So to be LEED certified is a cost. To be LEED certifiable was our language to suggest that you would have such energy conservation measures as to be able to be certified if you wanted to pay for it. And that was really a very great step. However, later enforcement of that resolution proved a little frustrating. While Andrea Wetzel-Darbin, after Dave left, I really actually I encouraged Andrea to take over the chairmanship. Andrea knew people, the name Wetzel in this city. She knew she called the mayor uncle, the then mayor, Uncle Gary. And so I thought, well, maybe this will work out better if we put somebody that Uncle Gary might return her calls, And as she was the chair, we celebrated Earth Day with festivities in City Park in the years of 2015 and 2016 with our marvelous high school environmental club members. Andrea got students involved, and the environment club at SIU sent, no one sent these kids, I'm sure, came. Rebecca Lauren, Eden Vidoff, and Charlie and Mia Thompson came, and they were fabulous. Very good help to us. We began writing our climate action plan by committee early on, but we never completed it until 2015. Writing things by committee just really is very cumbersome. When we did finish it, it had specific suggested green initiatives in the areas of transportation, adaptation, includes air quality, storm, urban design, plants and trees, renewable energy sources, waste, air and industrial pollution, food production, education, carbon offsets by forestry, prairie and garden, and policy development, education and community development, and communications and public relations. It's very similar to the current sustainability plan, but because it was written by committee, it's really repeats itself. It repeated itself frequently. It never really was tightened up until later on. At one point, I became so frustrated, I'll explain, that I decided that I had to either quit or take the chairmanship myself and just push with everything I had. A lot of the original members were gone, and it was just, we were getting stymied, it felt like, quite a bit. And as I say, I really think it's just the way the whole culture was at that time, where there just was a resistance in many places to kind of accepting the need, or maybe they just didn't feel as a committee we were necessary, or didn't know what use we might be. We joined the Green Cities Green Business Challenge, which beginning in 2017. Now, this is a MoBot sponsored initiative. I believe we joined it first when Andrea was the chair. She and I went to the first meeting. It's a MoBot initiative run by the incomparable Jean Ponzi, an amazing woman. So she is at Missouri Botanical Garden and reaches out to both businesses and cities, kind of challenging them to have more and more environmental initiatives and accomplishments, and then making a booklet every year for, it's like a brag book for people to brag about their accomplishments. Very interesting because you hear what other cities are doing. And at the same time, it gives you an opportunity to kind of organize what you have done and what you want to do. As of 2016, Alton, Granite City, and Highland were already participants, as well as Chesterfield, Creve Coeur, and U City in Missouri. In 2017, our accomplishments included having a power hour in City Hall for what was then called Solarize Madison County, which had had 15 contracts that year, offsetting over 100 tons of CO2, having a booth at Goshen Market to pass out reusable bags and pamphlets regarding energy efficiency resources, partnering with Bring Your Own Glen Ed, which was then trying to restrict the use of plastic bags at the market, spreading the work of Heartland Conservancy's GoFundMe for purchasing a protective corridor around the Bohm Woods, partnering with Alderman Kraus to put recycling containers on Main Street, and planning to put educational material on the city website, which did occur again after a long pause. We also tried to present the climate action plan to the city. This was a failure. Eden Vidoff kind of took the reins, and we were having difficulty being put on the agenda for the ACS meeting. One meeting to be supportive and not leave him alone, came with him just to back him up for whatever he was undertaking. I was invited without any preparation. I had no idea this was going to happen, to present the climate action plan to the city, to very unreceptive city personnel that were there. It was honestly one of the worst experiences of my life. So that particular go round was not successful. On 12/23/16, there was a meeting of the city in the city between Mayor Patton and Heartland Conservancy, SIU faculty, and the city departments, several city department heads, on green space planning and acquisition. Mayor Patton and S.J. Morrison also was part of this, did have this initiative to purchase and set aside 200 acres for the 200th anniversary of the city. This initiative was actually a lot of setting aside of conservation property. Very good thing. And somewhere in this time period was a sea change in the city's receptivity, mirroring changes in the wider culture. I really just think it's something that happened everywhere, not only the city, because honestly, sometimes it just felt like just a turn that was like a 90-degree turn suddenly. Locally, I attribute these changes to citizen action groups. The mayor, when he started to do this conservation, and it is a thing he deeply believed in and had, when he had run for mayor, had talked about wanting to do it previously. but also he was in part responding to the advocacy of citizens to the planned development of a student housing project within the range of the Bohm Woods. That project causing concern in SIU Professor Rich Essner that it would affect rare migratory birds who use the old growth forest for nesting. A large community group assembled when this development was considered by the ACS committee and the city council. The development was not stopped, but the protective corridor was purchased and set aside to be forested by the city with help from Heartlands Conservancy and is now called Drda Preserve, and it's large, 70 acres. So I think that that swelling of public opinion, whereas it may have not reached its goal, still influenced what happened next. Then starting in 2017, the Bring Your Own Glened group began with their, I say their, but our, I'm a member of that as well, politely persistent determination. I have learned so much from these women, are remarkable, very persistent and always so polite, and they just don't give up. And with their politely persistent determination to win hearts and minds in the city government and community, which culminated with a successful passage of the 10-cent disposable bag fee after years of very, very careful ground laying. The city came around very gradually and the first not being given a spot on the ACS committee agenda, sound familiar? And then by the end of probably 2 solid years of education and anytime anyone resisted, that organization would immediately meet with them. They always reached out to any opposition, met with small businesses in the area that objected. And by the end, the city council unanimously passed that 10-cent bag fee. It was inspiring to watch this process. It really was. And it was through education and outreach at every single level, but it was also through just keeping a big smile on your face while you just never relented. It was amazing act of citizen advocacy. The women in that BYO group are some remarkable people. They really are. So things started to change for the 2019 Green City Challenge. I think I was going to say, right, sorry. Our Cool Cities Committee then started the policy of partnering much more actively with other organizations, which was an important step, as that we joined with organizations that were doing things, and we made sure not to repeat what someone else was doing, but to always work with other organizations. So we partnered more actively, as well as publicizing the city's green initiatives and educating and advocating. So for the 2019, my husband's on dog duty. Sorry, this is very predictable. Guarding, pull him upstairs, please. Thank you. This is our life. Okay. Guarding. The 2019 Cities Challenge, our accomplishments included partnering with BYO, partnering with Rose Solar, partnering with Heartlands Conservancy, SIUE Sustainable Action Group, and SIUE Art Department. Much easier since we had the chair of the art department in our committee then. Republic Services, Edwardsville Tree and Beautification Commission, the League, Madison County Sustainable Education, and Glen Carbon Cool Cities. We added that year information and requests for recycling to the vendor applications for events in City Park. We tackled the issue of recycling contamination, which was really a problem. with putting pamphlets out in with the water bills and providing recycling education at District 9 classes, elementary classes, as well as this year we had a booth at the city art fair. We had a recycling booth. Again, our purpose to explain really not only what is recyclable, but what is not. We had 2 Grow Solar Power Hours in City Hall that year. The city had installed a solar array in City Park. Preserved, can anybody hear me? Preserved the Drda Preserve and Sand Prairie Preserve, which is a preserve that is, I can't remember the size, much smaller. It saves endangered tree frogs in the Sand Prairie areas. Pardon me. We worked with BYO and the Tree and Beautification Commission on the oldest tree and the Tree of Merit initiatives that they had. One second. Honey. Honey.
I think it was noteworthy that the original BYO was BYOB. And they decided that that was not a good term to use, so they changed it to BYO.
Well, it was about bringing your own bag, of course, but not your own booze. So in 2020, we easily led an initiative to stop spraying for mosquitoes regularly. Spraying for mosquitoes is ineffective and kills more mosquito predators than mosquitoes. It costs the city $33,000 annually. We presented the health department recommendations, which don't include regular spraying, and information on the effectiveness and risks compiled by a local resident. It passed very easily. It turned out the street superintendent, Matt Tall, agreed that it was an ineffective technique. When I tell you the sea change, it seems like everybody's kind of in a different side. Our beautiful flyer was sent to all the council members and a PowerPoint was presented. Our graphics have really improved because we have the chair of the SIUE art department as well as a young graphic designer, so that helps. Then we presented our climate action plan to the Administrative and Community Support Committee on 6/10/21. And it was adopted in August of 21 unanimously to warm acceptance and encouragement as the Edwardsville Sustainability Plan. It had been rewritten by the current city planner, Emily. But although the preamble, which is the one that describes about global warming and how human effects, and because that's still considered controversial in some places, they dropped that, the introduction. However, all the recommendations really remain there. And in fact, it was really better organized because instead of a committee with just one person, she put it in, there were a whole lot less incidents where we just repeated ourselves, and it was better organized. But believe me, I checked it very carefully and all the recommendations remain. The city was just 100% on board, as was everyone in the city. Since that time, the city has adopted a resolution that 50% of all new plantings on city property will be native species. Also, another conservation plot, Richards Woods, was set aside. The single-use bag fee went into effect finally after the huge delay caused by COVID. And now we are awaiting word for joining the planning for the new firehouse, which again is taking a while for us to get in on the meetings. However, we've already been told that it will have solar sources of energy. It will be solar powered. And as a matter of fact, our new fire chief has a solar array on his home. He's been to our meeting several times. So again, those things are just all changes. Some of the people have changed and everyone's sort of orientation has changed. I just wanted to finish by saying that I think the flattening of the food tech property in Glen Carbon presents a window of opportunity. Like things just present windows of opportunities, and those are times to make moves in certain directions. Our Cool Cities Committee will focus on recommending that the city decrease parking space requirements for businesses, and possibly we're going to recommend then capping the maximum parking places allowed to decrease the excessive empty parking lots that are up and down 159 in our city. And hopefully we'll be adding permeable paving and vegetative swale incentives, because those are things also that we're interested in. With the Plum Street Green Space Group, we're working with Alderman Kraus on the city potentially increasing the green space requirement for development, articulating more clearly the need for green space which preserves existing plants and trees, and minimizing the buyout option. As well as, this is kind of a pet of mine, Alderman Kraus is interested in a possible dark sky ordinance. An ordinance that all lighting only light at a horizontal plane, all the light comes down, not up. So that we might retrieve our ability to see the night sky. It also costs less to only light the area that you need lighted. And it actually reduces the glare, so that for people who are driving, it's actually better safety feature. So please contact your alderman to support our efforts. And the Plum Creek Green Space Group urges citizen participation at the Madison County committees that are tasked with approving the recent sale to a development organization of the 15 acres that we've been calling the Plum Creek property. The first such committee meeting at the county is 4 p.m. on March 4th at the County Administrative Building. So if you're interested in expressing yourself to the county on that subject, that's where we'll be. And any questions, of course. Did anybody hear anything when my dog started? I knew that would happen.
No, you were okay. I heard you.
I usually go to my office for these things because I know, but I didn't want to venture out.
I have a question.
Yes, Brett.
Can you explain what is the point of the opposition to the Plum Street development? We haven't heard much about it, so we don't know why there is opposition.
Oh, okay. Why is it that there is, first of all, I go into the Facebook page, which is Plum Creek Green Space, is helpful if you want to understand the reason. Okay, the reason that Plum Creek Green Space organization, which is not the Cool Cities, and was put together, is that a citizen who was concerned about the food tech property and about the kind of runaway development in the city came to one of the members of the BYO group with concern that she hated to see, that is a urban property, but that she had just then read that the county, Madison County, was going to sell these 15 acres of the Plum Creek, what we're calling Plum Creek property. It's 15 acres along Plum Street, just as it hits Governor's Parkway. So it's probably the last area, and it's probably the last green space in that area that has not already been developed. And there's just a whole lot of sentiment about preserving green space. And the reasons for it are, the citizen really was concerned about parking, that once this orchard development, as they have the nerve to call it, that is going to take place where the food check orchard really was, is once it's developed and it's many retail establishments will be in that property. The traffic problems are just going to become extremely difficult up and down Plum Street, causing a lot of people to go through subdivisions all around everywhere, because Plum Street, that extension originally was meant to keep property, because the traffic problems were so bad on 159 at that time, that they started that Plum Street extension truly as an easy way in and out of town. So there's traffic concerns. There are concerns about the amount of paving that's been going on, because it's a heat sink. It'll heat our community up to have more and more paved places. Loss of trees or green space, there's concern about that, both aesthetically and environmentally, particularly as it comes to water runoff. There's a seasonal watershed on that property. And if we pave all those areas, we will end up, in my opinion, with flooding. I just think that's what's going to happen. And I don't see why anybody's surprised when those things do happen, because of course, something has to soak the water up. So those are just some of the concerns, I think, that motivate the people who are objecting to it. I think the issue really is that it's owned by Madison County, and it could be used for ends that the community might prefer to another big box development, which the community is really. I will tell you that the petition has 12, I'm losing at least 1,200 signatures that was started a few weeks ago on that Facebook page. So that's, I hope I've done justice to it. If you go on the Facebook page, it will help.
Thank you.
I have a
I've
suggestion.
had my hand up for a long time.
Sorry.
Okay,
My dear
I didn't even see it.
friend.
Oh, there it is.
It's-
Okay,
Hidden in the flowers, Chris.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm a master
so
gardener.
there it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what did you want to say, Chris?
Well, I wanted to touch base on trees forever.
Yes.
A new kid has come on the block, really in the Midwest, called
Mhm.
Trees Forever. It's a nonprofit, which provides municipalities for the opportunity to plant diverse types of trees, okay, in public lands. And today, myself and John Slosar presented this program to our mayor, Bob Marcus, a week ago Friday. He had his own idea for providing residents in Glen Carbon with trees for their properties. Trees Forever is different, though. It's focused on towards public lands. I don't know how many of you might have heard PBS on PBS. Terry Gross's Fresh Air. There was a British fellow who's done a book on insects and how insects are
Mhm.
declining, okay, and it's a major problem, particularly an impact on food source. So the more trees you can plant, okay, rather than pavement, the better for the insect population. So today, it's a small package that we presented to the mayor. The Trees Forever people have an application package. Mayor Marcus took it and gave it to our village administrator. The deadline is tomorrow. It was signed off today. So we have this project. It's a very small project. The whole idea here is to kind of start small and move more and more and more as time goes by. So I suggested Trees Forever to the leader of the Green Space program and Rachel as a something that the county should consider buying rather than selling the property. Okay, buying trees, but there's a grant, it's a matching grant program. So there's really not a whole lot of buying that takes place because you get credit, you get carbon credits, you know, as time goes by. As the trees grow, you generate carbon credits, and that's part of the project.
So there's money available for it. There's money available for municipalities or to plant trees and maintain it.
It's supported by the National Forest Service and by the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. So I'm hoping that folks will consider this as an idea that the county should consider. I'm done.
I passed that on to the Tree and Beautification Commission in Edwardsville, but I don't know that anything has happened. I don't like to step on feet, so that's the problem. Barb, I think you had a question.
The organizer for this program, by the way, is going to be our speaker for the Sierra Club Speaker Series on April 12th. Her name is Emily Ailey. She's presented to the Cool Cities people in Edwardsville, and she presented to Glenn Carbon, and we were very impressed. So she's going to be our speaker, and we're looking forward to it. So you go to Palisades Group, the Sierra Club, hit events, and it's hot. You can register right now.
Now she's done work with Alton Cool Cities. They've done a lot of beautiful things in Alton. What was it, Barb?
Well, this is my idea. I can't do it, but it's my idea. If you want to really bring attention to that particular meeting, I wonder if somebody from the Observer Corps could go and be an official observer and actually record it. And then we could put it on our website theoretically. And even if it doesn't go the way we want it to go, at least the public will hear the discussion. So I don't know who in the Observer Corps is available, or if Carol or Joanne could get a letter to the Madison County saying we're going to have somebody come, or I don't know what could happen, but that would be a way to make it much more visible to the general public, more transparency.
So which meeting are you talking about?
March 4th meeting about Plum Street.
4 p.m. It's a county meeting. The county, I'm sorry, let me look at my notes. I always like to have oh my gosh. Sorry, I'll get the exact name of the exact county meeting. There are 2 different subcommittees and then the county board that have to vote. And
I think it's the Buildings and Facilities Committee.
Correct. I think that's right. Yes, Buildings and Facilities Management. 4 o'clock on the 4th of March, the Buildings and Facilities Management Committee. Sorry, I didn't say that. Is at the county. It's the first of several committees that have to approve the sale, and then the county board has to approve the sale.
I just feel like that might be a way the Observer Corps could put a little pressure on, with all they're doing is showing up and taking a video of it.
Right.
If you tell those people that we're here officially to record what's happening at this meeting, it might make a difference in how they talk about it.
And perhaps also the way that the citizens that are there are treated, or how much they're listened to.
I'm not sure if we can post a recording we make of a meeting for Observer Corps.
I'm not sure about that.
We take notes on it. We record it for our own purposes as a backup to justify the notes we've taken.
I have, just as an aside, I've asked John Cunningham if he would be willing to post that on our 993 ECTV. He hasn't answered me yet.
Well, I want to know if, I mean, strongly would urge them, but I don't think the county is going to listen to this. I think they want the money. And I do not know what the money is to be spent for, or just throwing it into the general fund or what. So I was wondering if anybody knew what was behind the county's motive for this. Obviously, they've owned the property for years.
They've owned it for years. They claim in paper, they have said that it cost them $16,000 to maintain it. It's really hard to believe that's their motive. I don't think they need money. And so I do know, Joanne, that in 2017, there was a plan, the zoning of this parcel, this 15-acre parcel, was changed to commercial in about 2017. And at that time, the county and the city had an alliance where they were working together, looking for a developer that would meet their criteria for, well, it was a development where the watershed part of it was going to be left alone, and then I think there was mixed use development that was going to be done. Maybe it was I think it was a housing, I think it was an apartment complex or something, and that plan fell through. Different people will say for different reasons. The city told me that plan fell through because the money wasn't sufficient that the developer was offering. I've heard other reasons. I've heard that that it fell through because of something to do with the city. The city will say it has something to do with the finances. That fell through. And now this time the city's not involved at all. The county just wants to sell it. And our committee did talk to a representative from the county, and they say they want to be transparent and just sell it to the highest bidder. But in the past, there was an effort to have a development where the city would have had something to say, where community members could have come to meetings and express themselves. So community members are going to express themselves at the county committees. Will it have any effect? I don't know. I think the important thing, honestly, is to for people to express themselves, and when they have strong feelings about things, to be activist about it, because sometimes what you're trying to have happen doesn't happen, but maybe other things will happen. Maybe it opens a door. And why they are selling right now, I do not know, or what they intend to do with the money is, I have not heard that question answered. I've heard the question asked. I've not heard the question answered.
Well, it just strikes me as very unusual that the high bid was the same developer that's getting the Glen Carbon property. And I understand the Glen Carbon, that's private land, they can sell to whoever they want to. That's not a problem. But this is not, this is public land, and it just strikes me as odd. That's all.
The reason the citizens are up in arms, that was private land and they could sell it, although that Glen Carbon the village board had to approve it, and I did speak out, and it actually was kind of a close vote. I do think they're going to come to regret that, but that is something that has already taken place. That's a different problem. This is in the city limits of Edwardsville, but owned by the county. But the county, of course, is us. That's public land. And I think the citizens want something to say about the way it is developed or not, because the idea of another big box and another parking lot that is, as far as the eye can see, I just don't think there's anybody in Edwardsville that has any kind of appetite for that at this point. There's so many of those parking lots that you just can scarcely see anything except a parking lot. And for this, I don't think any green. I'm really, the Cool Cities Committee, that organization is not the Cool Cities Committee, although I'm a member of both. Cool Cities Committee has an interest in greenhouse gas, and something has to suck up the CO2. I mean, if everything is gone that can suck it up, then we are really in trouble. We have to admit zero. And, you know, we're breathing, so that's not going to happen.
I have a question, Rachel. If it's a city, it's in the city, does the city not have any say over what
I've spoken to several people in the city. As I say, my relationship at this point with the city is great, and I trust things that people tell me. The city has nothing to say about this. If a developer chooses to build only one building and they're within the zoning laws, which it is zoned commercial. So as long as they follow the zoning laws, and I think there's a 4% green space requirement, which you can buy out of. And also in many cases just means you have a thin patch of lawn in between two parking lots. You know, it doesn't mean you'll maintain anything that exists. Unfortunately, that idea of green space, it's people's idea of what green space is. It's a little bit different depending on who you are. But so those are I spoke both to the city planner and the city administrator. In the past, in 2017, they had all kinds of things to say about it. And if the developer plans a planned unit development, which is a very common type of development, those types of developments do have to be approved by the planning commission in the city and the city council, I believe. So it depends on specifically actually depends on what the developer plans. There are types of development the city would have nothing to say about except to make sure that the zoning laws are followed, even though it's in the city property. But there are other kinds of development the city would have something to say about. When PUD development, the city does have something to say about.
Rachel, there's also one aspect to that the Sierra Club is very concerned about. There is a strip that runs down the middle of that property, this wetlands.
Wetlands, right, that's right. There's a wetlands area. There's a wetlands area. And it's not only important just environmentally to maintain wetlands, it's also, I feel like, just a practical problem that you can, through the Army Corps of Engineers, you can get a permission kind of to pave them over, but the water, you know, the water is still there. So frequently, I think we make plans and then there's like flooding. We're like, what? How, if you've got an area that's soaking in water or running it off in a natural way, and you get permission from the Army Corps of Engineers to remediate, what's called remediate, then the water, you know, it's still there. And so it's got a practical, it's practical in both cases, because of course, as you point out, if we can't maintain our environment in a healthy way, so that we lose species at the you know, the pace that we're losing species. I know I heard that interview too about the loss of insects. That is terrifying. With insects go birds, folks, and not to mention our what we our crops. I mean, with pollinators goes our crops, but with insects go birds, frogs. I mean, so maintaining it for environmental purposes is actually very important, but there's practical reasons not to pave everything. It also increases the amount of heat. You might know, I don't know how many of you have been around for a while. You used to drive down 157. If you drove in from St. Louis, I remember this as a student, it would like the temperature dropped 10 degrees when you got into Edwardsville, because there were farms everywhere. And I'm sure it doesn't anymore.
Oh.
Are there other questions for Rachel?
Well, I might inject that on February the 14th, there was an opening of bids on that 15 acres, and the development group gave the minimum bid, which what was it? 100.
3.8
2
million.
million?
I think it was $3.8 million, Robert.
Yeah, 3.87.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
So now it's up to the county to take it to the
Yes,
different committees and such, and then vote on whether or not they approve it.
correct. There are 3 committees. There are 2 committees and then the county board. And the first committee is the one that is coming up in March 4th. That's, again, I have to look it up. Buildings and Facility Management Committee.
I would like to appreciate, Rachel, the really great rundown you gave of how things started and went, with the Cool Cities program. And it's been a wonderful experience for me. I know it was a wonderful experience for Dave Gokin. And he's still a great guy to know. But
He's a wonderful man. We really, the 4 of us, that was really fun. It was really stepping out of my comfort zone because I didn't know any of you. And it was very satisfactory. I never see Phil, and he's a great guy. But I really, it was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience, Chris. And you went on to do in Glen Carbon what Dave and I went on to do in Edwardsville. We've done our
Right.
best.
Right, and we now have 6 Cool Cities committees that are pretty active. Collinsville came on board 2 years ago. Godfrey has a pretty active Cool Cities committee, and Alton and Granite City, very active in Granite City.
They're doing some amazing things in Granite City and all,
Yes, they do.
and Highland.
And well, yeah, and Troy, Kevin McKee, who was one of my fellow
Mhm.
advisors on the Grow Solar program, is working on a Cool Cities committee for Troy. So even though the Sierra Club doesn't specifically have a policy and funding for Cool Cities, they're all over the place. And the program had started back in 2006 or 2005.
2005.
Yeah, it has really taken off, and it's so great to have this relationship with Missouri Botanical Gardens and Gene Ponzi. So, and it's great that the League of Women Voters is supportive. And also, I just have to comment that I did change my screen so that you could see Sweet Lorraine. All right, that's my boat. That's Sweet Lorraine, and she's doing good. All right, some people are concerned, but she's doing okay.
Well, you all got to meet my dogs by voice. My dogs and my daughter's dogs. I mean, my dogs are bad enough, but add my daughter's dogs, it's loud.
So, well, if there are no other questions for Rachel, we will end the meeting. And thank you so much, Rachel, for giving us your time. And I think I learned a lot about the course.
I kind of enjoy doing the research. Contact me, anybody with further questions or issues. I'm ready by email. I read my emails and I respond to my emails. So anything you need to
Well,
ask.
I would like to remind people to talk to their county board member how they feel about this. Either email, call them, write a letter or whatever. I mean, if they
Yes.
get enough feedback, perhaps something might happen. I don't know.
Very good point. That Plum Creek group we had a demonstration, but there's a letter writing campaign to the county board chair and your county board member, and as well as signing a petition that's available through the Facebook page.
If we had a listing and a contact for county board members that somebody could put together and share, it would be.
That's available on the county board website. Every board member is listed with their telephone number and their email.
How do you know what district you're in? I mean,
I think there's a map, like for Glen Carbon, there's only one. But there's a map, you can tell what district you're in.
card.
It's also on your voter registration card.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's on your
okay.
voter
Thank you.
card.
Thank you.
And you can write, I think I sent an email to the whole entire, someone gave us the emails. I just sent it to all of them and also the county board chair, as well as my own personal county board member, although, of course, it means more if it's yours.
And I know you're all been waiting for me to tell you about March 8th speaker series. It's going to be our first live program at the Old Bakery Beer Company, and it'll be there'll be an option for Zoom. The speaker is Emily Connor she's the Director of Education for Audubon's Riverland Center. You go to our website, you'll see a nice picture of her. She's banding a kestrel chick. I think that Brent Langley might want to get that. He might want to do a coloring drawing of that.
Hate it.
Chick.
So that's on the 8th, which is a Tuesday. At what time, Chris?
6:30. But we invite, regulars or non-regulars to come at 5:30 and have a bite to eat, maybe a beer or maybe a soft drink, and talk with the speaker, chat with the speaker, because we always take the speaker out to dinner for each one of these speaker series when we do it live, and it's been about 2 years since so anyway, hope you can come.
Nice getting back into it.
Yep.
Yeah, Joanne, that was a good point about contacting your county board member. It's important.
Yep.
And it's so much easier these days than it used to be. A quick email is so much simpler than typing a letter like we used to have to do. So,
Well,
yeah. Once I got the email addresses, I could really write what would have been a letter and just send it to everybody, right?
a short point paper would be handy to have if your friends with the Alliance want to give us something that we can use. So we're not stepping on people's toes.
Joanne and Carol, what would we have to do in order to get permission for our league to put a time for action on our webpage or our Facebook page to do that? Do we have to get the League of Women Voters of IL to approve?
oh, no, I don't think we have to get permission for that. We just need to put it on the website.
So it's an official thing. We do
Of
oppose.
the League of Women Voters of Edwardsville, correct.
So if somebody can send me something to post on the website, Rachel, do you have anything, any paper or something or information that you could synopsize, I could put on a website and on a Facebook page?
Yes, I can get that sent to you. I think Mary Gross prepared that. One of the most remarkable people in the world, Mary Gross. I'm going to have her send something to you. Sheila Voss, Mary Gross, all those women, unbelievable people.
All right, so when I get it, I'll post it and I'll say time for action has to be before March 4th. No, because it'll even be going after that.
March 4th, right?
And it's definitely getting on the website, the Facebook page, Plum Creek Green Space also will give you a lot of the information you want and might do better justice to the purpose of the organization. Plum Creek, I said Creek, Plum Creek Green Space. Sorry, not Plum Street.
So there's like two
Green Space.
There's two actions, right? One is to contact your Madison County board member, and one is to attend one of the board meetings. And there'll be
Yes,
two board meetings. We don't know
yes.
the second board meeting. We just know the first board meeting.
And you could sign that petition that
Oh,
you
there's a
would be able
petition.
to get access to on the Plum Creek Green Space. I have to watch myself because I keep saying Plum Street. Plum Creek Green Space is the Facebook page.
Okay,
That will tell you what you need to know. It gives alert, there are alerts on there and any details about that meeting. And I will have Mary send you, Barb, an alert.
Okay, great.
okay. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for everyone that has attended, and watch our website, because Barb does a fabulous job and Becky does a fabulous job of keeping us all informed.
Thank you, Becky, for today, as for always. And we'll work together on this, Barb. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, get that blurb to me too, so I can send it to about 760 Sierra Club members who are in the Metro East area.
I will.
Okay.
Sierra
Alright.
Club supports this effort.
I'm gonna email her right now. So, okay.
Good night, everyone.
Good
All
night.
right, good night.
Good night.